Alright, today we're going to talk about ratios and proportions. And so first we're going to do a couple of definitions. So a ratio is when you compare two numbers by division. And so remember that division can also be written as a fraction. So 2 out of 3. It could also be written like this, 2 out of 3. Okay. A proportion is when two ratios are equal. And so when we think about that, when we're thinking about fractions, think about your equivalent fractions. So 2/3, we could also write that as 4/6. Those two proportions, those two are equal to each other. Those two ratios are equal. So if two ratios are equal, then the way we can check for that is to make sure that their cross products are also equal. And so here's the formula for that. If A over B is equal to C over D, let's write that as an if-then statement, then we know that A times D is equal to B times C. So their cross products here are equal to each other. So that's how we're going to check those. So you might be asked if whether a pair of ratios are proportional. And so we're going to do a couple of examples. So if you're given two ratios, so 4/6 and 12/16, and we want to see if they're proportional. Well, we're going to set them up as their cross products. So 4/6, is that equal to 12/16? And again, we're just going to cross multiply on that. So 4 times the 16 is that equal to the other cross product, 6 times 12. Well, 4 times 16 is 64. Is that equal to 6 times 12? Well, 6 times 12 is 72. Well, that's not equal, so no, those two ratios are not proportional. So here's another example. Is 3/5 proportional to 6/10? So again, we're going to cross multiply. So 3 times 10, is that equal to 6 times 5? 3 times 10 is 30. That's equal to 6 times 5, which is also 30. So yes, those two ratios are proportional. And they could be set up a little bit harder. We could say we have -3/7, where we're actually going to have to solve for the proportion. So here we're just going to solve what's x. Okay, so remember, if you've got -3/7, that negative can only go with one of those signs. So we're going to say -3 times 7 equals 7 times the x plus 2. And remember, you've got to multiply the whole thing, so we're going to have to use that distributive property on those. So -3 times x leaves us with -3x. And remember, if I have 7 times x plus 2, that means that 7 has to be distributed to everything inside those parentheses. So that makes 7x plus 14. Okay, so now we're just at an algebra equation, and we're just going to go solve. So I'm going to subtract the 7x from both sides, and that gives me -10x is equal to 14. I'll divide both sides by 10, or -10, and so x would be equal to 14 over -10, which is -7/5, or negative 1.4 would be your final answer. Okay, let's do another one like that, where we're having to solve. What if we have x minus 2 over 2 that's equal to x minus 6 over 4? Okay, well, again, we're just going to cross multiply. So we have 2 times the x minus 6 equals 4 times the x minus 2. And again, all we're doing is multiplying these two and multiplying these two and seeing if they're equal, or solving for x in this case. Okay, so we've got to distribute the 2, so that gives us 2x minus 12. 2 times 6 is 12, is equal to 4x minus 8. And we're just going to solve for that. So subtract 2x from both sides. Remember, you can solve either way. I just always look and see where my answers would possibly be positive, especially my x values, or where they would be positive, and solve that side. So now I'm going to add 8 to both sides. And that leaves us with 2x over here is equal to negative 12 plus 8 gives us a negative 4. Divide both sides by 2. So x is equal to negative 2. All right, now let's look at a couple maybe of word problems. Let's say, and try to set these up on our own. Joe sells balloons. He charges, let's say, $9 for 12 balloons. At this rate, how much would 50 balloons cost? Okay, so when we set these up, it's very important to just make sure that you are always comparing, or that you set your ratios up in the same order. So a lot of times I'll come over here and say, well, I'm going to put the money on top, and then I'll put the number of balloons here on bottom. And that's the way I'm going to make sure that I set both of mine up. So the first sentence tells me that he charges $9 for 12 balloons. So the money's going on top, so 9 is on top, balloons are on bottom, so that's 12. And that's the same ratio, and the other information that we're given is 50 balloons. Well, that needs to be on the bottom because we've got our balloons on the bottom. Therefore, our variable is the amount of money, so our x is on the top. Okay, so now all we have to do is cross multiply. So 12 times x is equal to 9 times 50. So 12 times x is 12x. 9 times 50 is 450. We'll divide both sides by 12. So x should be equal to $37.50. And that's very helpful when you're trying to figure out how much things might cost, what things can do. We'll try one more example real quick. Okay, so let's just say copy machine can copy 50 pages in 1.5 minutes. Okay, how long will it take to copy 90 pages. So again, let's make sure that we're going to set it up correctly. So let's say pages on top, minutes on the bottom. So in the first one, first sentence, we have 50 pages for 1.5 minutes. So pages is on top, minutes are on the bottom. I'm going to set that proportion up, but this time we're given the pages. So pages is on top, we're looking for the minutes. Cross multiply, so 50x is equal to 90 times 1.5 is 135. Divide both sides by 50. So x should be about 2.7 minutes.